life's magic question. This is a question that I ask myself many times throughout the day. You might want to tattoo this message on your left wrist. Just you could actually, or have a bracelet with the tattoo. With the message on the bracelet. Because you don't want to forget it. And I wind up using this little question multiple times every day. I use the question when I'm invited out, when somebody invites me to their home for dinner. I use the question when I'm trying to decide what to watch on TV that night. I use the question when I'm trying to decide what book I should take from the shelf to read, in bed that night. I use the question when I'm having a little spat, a little tiff, a little argument with my beloved wife across the kitchen, and we're not quite getting along as well as we would like. I use the question in all those kinds of moments. Here's the question. Write it down and memorize it. What does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? And what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? See, now the question wouldn't make any sense to you unless you were clear that you came here, to the earth to begin with an agenda. If you think you just dropped out of the sky and just showed up and you don't know why you're here or what you're doing here, the question makes no sense. So in order for the question to be operable, that is, for it to have any function in your life, in order for the question to make any sense, you would have to know what the agenda of your soul is. But once you become clear, that's what we're doing here this weekend. Once you become clear what the agenda of your soul is, suddenly the question has a context within which you can hold it and actually answer it. So if somebody invites me to a dinner party, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? If I'm deciding what I want to watch on TV that night, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? If I'm deciding what book to take from the shelf and to read, to take to bed with me that night, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? If I'm having a little unfortunate moment, a little tiff, a little argument with my wife across the kitchen in the morning, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? We are talking here about a tool that I was given in conversations with God called recontextualization. In English, recontextualization. That is, to place into a new context what is occurring. If you allow yourself to look at what's happening right in front of you and to place it into a context, into a container called the agenda of your soul, it will recontextualize the event itself. Not to even speak of your response, which will also be recontextualized. And suddenly your response to the exterior event will be a demonstration of your agenda. Or to put it in simple terms, you will no longer come from your mind's data, but from your soul's awareness. And oh, what a difference that will make. I just looked down at the sponsor and he goes, gotta love him, gotta love him. So the trick, you see, I'm giving you a tool here that can change your life. Honestly, I wouldn't waste your time with this if this wasn't really powerful. The tool is called recontextualization. That is, you place into a new container what is occurring here or way out there, across the world economic situation, the world political situation, or what's happening in your own kitchen, what's happening in your own life. And you begin to hold that event in a new container that is created by your question. What does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? Now, when they edit this in post, I want that close-up in the edit. Can you see, honestly, can you see how powerful that question could be? Why is this happening? In the context of the agenda of my soul, what does this have to do with the agenda of my soul? It's a powerful question that can change your response to the events of your life and your life itself as a result. All right, question number 2, because there are 3 magic questions. Question number 2. When you're looking across the room or across the space, maybe you're watching television, watching, one of the major television networks like CNN, or you're just looking at the world at large. Or maybe you're just watching your beloved spouse across the kitchen, having some words with you. Here's the question that could change the moment dramatically. What part of me am I seeing over there? Is there any part of me that I am seeing over there? Have I ever acted like that? It's a powerful question. Powerful, powerful question. If you keep that inquiry in mind and bring it to the forefront of your awareness in difficult moments in life, when you're having an interaction or simply watching someone from a distance do something or behave in a way with which you do not agree. And if you ask yourself, what part of me am I seeing over there? Have I ever, even maybe at a lower level, demonstrated that same energy? Behaved in that same way? Maybe I haven't done the exact same thing, but have I ever demonstrated that the energy that supports what I'm seeing this other person now do? And if the answer is yes, yes, I can recall a time in my life when I have expressed the same kind of energy. Suddenly, understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. Suddenly you realize that there's nothing to be upset about or to be forgiving of, because you've behaved in the same way at some level. Of course, it's understood that when you behave that way, you're perfectly justified. It's only when the other person does those things that it's incomprehensible. How could you do such a thing? How could you say that? How could you say such a thing? But when I say those kinds of things, perfectly understandable. Because of course, you have to understand, try to understand that I am always right. Now, forgive me if it begins to sound like I'm sharing with you some fairly elementary stuff. I understand, really, I do, that these are elementary lessons in life. They're so elementary that I stopped using them when I was in 4th grade. And it took me 50 years to bring them back into my experience. Here's the third magic question. I mentioned this yesterday, and I want to bring it back into the room today because it's perhaps the most powerful question of all. What does God want to say today through me? What does God want to say today through me? Interesting question. Supposing your only job was to speak in the first-person voice of God. All of you have done it, by the way. Every single one of you has spoken in the first-person voice of God. I'm sure you know that. If you're a doctor, you know it for sure. Because all doctors, of course, are God, or think that they are. But even if you're just not a doctor, just a regular person, you have all spoken in the first-person voice of God. If you've ever spoken of love to anyone, you've spoken in the first-person voice of God. If you've ever spoken of compassion and awareness to anyone, you've spoken in the first-person voice of God. If you've ever said to anyone at a moment of their deep discouragement, I understand. I'm here for you. You have spoken in the first-person voice of God. If you've ever spoken words of encouragement when someone was deeply in doubt about their own ability and their own life, you have spoken in the first-person voice of God. But supposing that your opportunity was to speak in the first-person voice of God in every moment of your life, or as many of the moments as you could manage, do you think it might change not just the things you say, but the way you say what you say? The tone of voice, the energy, the speed with which you talk, the whole presentation. Supposing you really thought, I have come to the room to heal the room. I've come to the space to heal the space. There's no other reason to be here. It's not about me. It's about you. Now, if you think the same thing, if you think it's not about you, it's about me, now we have a symbiotic relationship that will heal the world. I promise you, I would not tell it to you if it were not true. I promise you.